What's up, guys? Welcome back to Free Game. Luke Jeraci, your host, with co-host Jeremy Todd, and today we got my homie, man, honestly special guest, Kevin Walton. Dude is crazy talented, the founder, creator, El Presidente of The Light Beings, also one of the co-stars of Sistas on Tyler Perry's new show on BET. Just kind of start off, we'll just kind of walk it right in, and again, guys, free game, free, unrestricted, talk about whatever the fuck you want. Game, life, business, spirituality, whatever it is. And then I don't know if you've seen the logo, but it's Metatron's cube. In other words, meta, being aware, tron, a utility, so thinking about thinking.
Hell
you know
yeah.
what I mean? So tell us about Creatorhood and what that is as a spiritual path and practice.
Legit. So, well, hey, awesome to be on here. Rocking with you, first and foremost.
Thanks for being on here, bro.
Yeah,
You
brother.
just finished shooting, so thank you for coming right up, man.
Yeah, no doubt. So Creatorhood is a practice I developed that I've been teaching now for over 10 years, been on a personal journey over 20 for myself. But it's a practice and pathway of understanding how to live in your fullest authentic expression and what that actually means when we're talking about, consciousness, emotional intelligence, structure of existence. And so the whole practice is really revealing how you function, how you're naturally meant to exist, and then why you aren't functioning that way if you're experiencing limitations, to know what to address, what to restore, to do that in a more deliberate, embodied, optimal way. And it includes all aspects of life. It's a very encompassing practice in that.
So Kevin actually created this group called The Light Beings. I actually used to be like a core member of it at one point down in Hollywood, Florida.
And you still got your seat.
That's right. I'm grandfathered in, baby. I'm in.
Exactly.
I'm in.
Exactly.
That's kind of how I got into that. Really helped me take my spiritual awareness to the next level. And I can just tell you, Kevin put in the work, man. He's got like a whole, my favorite was the principles. Let me see if I can go off the top and how many, there's 10 principles.
Yeah.
1, know yourself. 2, own your power. 3, live from the heart. 4, honor the connection. 5, listen to the body. I'm correct
Close.
right now, right?
Yeah.
6, follow your intuition. 7, take ownership and responsibility. 8, internal cause, external effect. I don't remember what 9 is. Then 10 was unconditional love.
Yeah, so close. So, and there's been 2 adjustments to like lock in. So as the practice has been growing, I love that you still have that.
I put that in business. You can ask him.
Yeah,
like, that's how we do it.
That's like almost exactly how we do sales in the office.
Nice. So then you got to get the refinement then, because there's 2 things I adjusted for the sake of, so you know how our practice is based on truth. And I say that adamantly. Our definition of truth is the most accurate alignment of unified completion. So that which is most universal to everything, that never changes.
On like a personal or like a cosmic?
Everything.
From
the micro to the macro, from personal as the individual to the entire function of the universe. There are things that apply to everything no matter what. And when you become more familiar with them, you'll start seeing them in everything.
You mean like metaphysical or like...
Everything from how your emotions work to how we behave as humans, even why you have certain thought processes the way you do, then understand the nature of beliefs, how we establish beliefs. So it's and then how nature works and interacts, why we build cities the way we do. There's all these patterns that when you understand how the structure of existence works, you'll see in everything all the time. And once you know how to identify it, you also know how to catch yourself, adjust yourself, and
it's kind of like the signs
stuff.
Yeah.
When you're looking for it,
exactly.
All of a sudden,
and
there they
are.
are.
Always there. Yeah. So this practice is based on being able to start recognizing that, and it's based on a solid foundation of knowing how to have a reference point to guide you, because a lot of people function in life without the clarity of a reference point, meaning that they know how to check in with themselves on whether they're coming or going, up or down, whether you're actually doing the things you want to do or if you're out of integrity with it.
So is there any self-actualization you have to do before joining? Something like that? Like, is everybody different from a starting point, and then you try to find the commonalities?
Yes. So there are certain things that everyone relates to regardless.
Right.
And the practice starts with that. And then as you start to get more of the information, more of the insights, you start seeing how it starts to fit you personally, or this other person personally, or a certain culture personally.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it because it's designed the way it is, it starts off with a very clear notion of who you actually are beyond all your stories. And it's important to know that, because it's jarring enough to know just how great and magnificent you are beyond all your stories, and what you can do with the awareness of that. And the principles, like Luke was just talking about, the way it breaks down, and it's always from the ownership place. So I know you're saying own your powers, own thy, because
Oh,
you own
yeah,
yours,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's always thy.
Yeah,
It's always thy.
super, yeah. So super clear on that shit.
It's thy.
Right? Yeah. So it goes number 1, own, right, or know thyself. 2, own thy power. 3, live from the heart. 4, honor the connection. 5, live intentionally. Then 6, listen to the body. Right? Then 7, follow the intuition. 8, instead of take ownership and responsibility, because what I realized, you know how I'm always breaking things down by equations?
Yeah.
So I'm finding that most universal thing. Ownership, to me, is responsibility plus accountability.
Okay.
So that together equals ownership. So instead of it now being take ownership and responsibility, which is like saying the same thing twice, it's now own thy sovereignty. So recognize yourself as a sovereign being and own all of you. And that's now principle number 8. So that's the amendment, if you will, update. Then number 9 is internal cause, external effect.
And then 10,
And then
be driven by
10
unconditional love.
Yeah, that one tweak on that is now be driven by love and greater purpose.
You got rid of unconditional because love is just
Because love is just
unconditional.
yeah. So it's like be driven by love and greater purpose.
You know what's
And
funny?
That's the space in that.
So I forgot live intentionally, right? So what I kind of do is I took this idea from Kevin, is essentially like, so if you forget something or something's coming up a lot, that's probably your lesson, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't been as on point lately, so I'm not living as intentionally. So it's fitting that that's the one I forgot, and that's usually
the work in action right there.
But then you check yourself, and
Yeah,
then
but
it
then I check
comes up,
myself.
and then you see it, and you're like, oh shit, all this stuff I was
Exactly.
supposed to do, I didn't do, boom, snowball.
Exactly.
And then you kind of realign, so to speak.
which is what I brought up in like our leaders meeting today. Like,
Yeah.
all right, cool, yo, I haven't been on point.
Yeah,
I'll
like
get back
you're
on
like,
point.
the
That's
next
just what
90
it is.
days, I'm gonna.
Exactly.
It's the pendulum, right? So like, I know myself. So if I get a little off point, there's certain habits I have that'll put me back on point.
Exactly.
And then you just swing the pendulum and you move up levels. I was trying to explain to my girl the other day, the way I look at the pendulum is almost like you have to picture it almost like a 3-dimensional view, but you know, like those peg ladders where you like stick it in and you climb up.
Yes.
It's like every time you move up a level, the pendulum goes up. So you're still swinging, but now you're at a
But
different
it's
level.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that. Yes, because the notion is that you hear often is when people say, you know, I took steps backwards, or I'm going back to square one, but you never go back to square one. You never go back to a place where you're less aware than you were the day before.
It's almost impossible.
Correct.
Because just
It's
by
like-
you
'cause it's
saying
built-
that means that you are
You're
aware
aware,
that you moved back, which
exactly.
means you're
So
already ahead of yourself.
Exactly. So the law of rhythm or the system of rhythm rather, which is like the pendulum swing, is as you become more present and in command of yourself, you take more command of that system. So then its swing is held by your container of awareness. So every time you step up, it's just like Luke said, instead of it going like back down, it's like this is now the baseline you're playing at. And then this is now the baseline, so that even if you experience a limitation, it's still only meeting the edges of what this version of you embodies. So it won't be like, you know, going full all the way back. Even if you're doing some of the similar things you were doing,
Right.
you're still in a different space of awareness, no matter how long it takes you to restore alignment. You know what I mean?
So you're almost in control of the pendulum moving.
Command.
Yeah.
If you're more present, yeah.
So if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm aware of it and it's going backwards, I can snap out of it and
Exactly. You catch yourself, and that and the notion of what you just expressed. I'm very specific about words, and we have very specific definitions, as Luke will tell you. We know is where I even had to make a glossary for the practice because we're that specific. Because I find that
It's like a 40-page packet.
yeah, it's so legit. Like the whole practice, but it's even bigger now.
Yeah.
Because now we have all the phases set, and yeah. So it's
that's wild.
yeah, it's because it really is. It takes the notion of your multidimensional existence. So think about just how expansive existence actually is, and it's a way of breaking it down that you can live in that awareness, but practically live the human experience.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You're
so
not
that
too
it's
clouded.
Exactly, and it's not too abstract, and it's not
Yeah.
too just esoteric.
Because there is a physical world.
Exactly. And you're very much a part of it, right? Like we're in it.
Whether
so
or
it's
not,
like,
yeah.
It's like, so how do you take those concepts and live it every day in a way that keeps you that tapped in, but keeps you that engaged? And so in this space, there's a thing I call the command surrender principle. And it's different than control and submission. So like command is the ideal because what command suggests is that you understand you're the center order to all the potential of energy around you, right? You guide it, you direct it, and it's based from the internal out, internal cause, external effect. Surrender is the same thing. There's no surrender happening if you aren't in command. So it's like if I identify myself in my sovereignty, and this is what my standard is, and this is what I want, and this is what I'm going for, the surrender in me is so I'm open to everything necessary showing up as it will that supports me living in the embodiment of that. continuing to live that standard, continuing to do whatever, instead of thinking like, no, keep this away because I don't like it. It's like, but what if that's the thing that's going to bring awareness to you, and you'd want to uncover why you don't like it in the first place. Right. So, and then control is exactly that motion. It's where it's all based on things outside of you. Maybe if everything is the way I want it, things will work out. But when you do that, you're cutting off a portion of more abundant things at your disposal that you don't know. And it's all contingent on hoping that this limiting identity of me has all the answers to my life, which it absolutely does not. Right? Because who you are beyond all this is where the answers live.
Right.
And the submission part of that is where we'll end up going like, fine, I didn't want it anyway. Like the checkout, the quit, the acquiescence, where surrender is no checkout. It's I'm open, but I'm also very clear about who I'm asking myself to be, what I do. And that relationship, command and surrender, is the ideal for everything in existence. Everyone that would be living as healthy as they could possibly live, as optimal as they could possibly live, with the most authentic relationships that they could have, and how progressive in business, it literally is contingent on that, based on the two generating appeals of operation, which is safety and significance, which we talk about, or not feeling safe and significant within, and then all you're doing is looking for ways to control and then submit, hoping that one of those actions gets you what you want, but it's never where it lives. Then that's where like all things like addiction come from. That's where all the other patterns that we play out consistently come from.
I think that's Maslow's hierarchy too, right? Like it's the pyramid. If anybody's listening, I'm wrong that it's Maslow, but I think it's Maslow's hierarchy, where like before you can get to your next, the highest level is like self-actualization, but the lowest level is like safety and like food, right? So if you don't have that, you can't get to the next level, and you basically have to like get up each pyramid. So when you don't have safety, or you don't feel safe, you don't feel comfortable, then it's hard to get the signs and the deeper knowledge, because your main focus is you are animals, regardless of what we think about it.
Yeah,
we're smart monkeys, basically.
Yeah.
Just
and still even more than that. Like it's because the notion of how Creatorhood is, there's 7 facts that the practice is built on, and I call them facts because they never change. Like no matter what you experience, no matter what story you're telling, every time you go back to them, they're still going to be the same thing, and things for us to own and address. So like, the first one being the self is limitless, boundless, and always connected, right? So that means that there's always more of you to reveal and discover. You have access to all of you, no matter what. Everything you've been through, every memory you have, everything. That's a legit thing always. Even if because the mind's designed to want to keep the physical body intact and out of danger. So if things will be heightened emotional states and it doesn't know what to do with that energy, it'll block it out, right? But it doesn't mean that it's somehow out of your reach. It just means you have to do the work to open yourself up to access it.
And everything's connected to scientifically through quantum entanglement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Any two particles are
It's
always
like
aware.
Eastern philosophy.
Everything's connected in it. So, and you'll constantly tap into spaces where that happens all the time. Like the fact that people will sit down and tap into the same wavelength of thought and go, I could really want to. I was just thinking the same thing,
dude. That happens
legit
all the time with Luke.
There's things that we do, or when you think of someone and they call you out of nowhere. Like there's things that happen in us on a regular basis that we take for granted because we're not living in awareness of just what that actually reveals to us on a regular basis. And when you think about the way that life functions, and like you were talking about the hierarchy of needs is what you're talking about, right? So what we talk about in Creatorhood is understanding how to live by a standard rather than a need, and the difference between both, and knowing that it's all contingent on the way we define experience. So it's not necessarily that you have to be safe, it's feel safe. As long as you feel safe and significant, you will be living in a priority of focus of growth and liberation. That's all you're going to care about. Where do I grow?
Sense.
How do I be my fullest authentic expression of self?
Because like a soldier, right? Like a soldier on the field that feels he's a soldier, he's not safe, but he feels comfortable with what he is.
Exactly.
So
he's
he's
comfortable,
able to
willing
act
to take the
courageously.
action, willing to put yourself out there. And that's actually, I call it the 2 generating appeals of operation, meaning that those 2 things dictate what appeals most to you in your life, the way that you move on your path. Because when you feel them, that your priority of focus is always growth and liberation. Like all you want to do is explore more. You're willing to be more vulnerable. You can feel your emotions, let them move and flow. When you don't feel them though, when you feel insignificant and unsafe, your 2 priorities of focus are comfort and validation. That is where everyone's patterns go.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yep.
Is when you're not seeking growth.
Right.
You're
now you're
just
constantly
comfortable.
seeking comfort and validation.
It's just
hoping
comfort, but it doesn't mean you're getting better.
Exactly.
It's just
satiating the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a way to avoid addressing certain things, and so that's what happens, and then that becomes your path. And when that's your path, everything you do is dedicated to that. No matter who you got to screw over, no matter who you got to like bully, no matter what you got to do, all you're looking for is, I want to feel more powerful and valid and comfortable because I don't, and the orientation is off. And that's why people will reach for instant gratification when they don't know how to process things. I don't want to deal with these emotions, I'm going to go eat. I don't want to deal with these emotions, I'm going to go have sex. I'm going to deal with emotions, I'm going to drink. Rather than actually take the time to process your shit. Right. So you can actually be a more embodied human, rather than those energies build up because you're going to have to address them anyway. Yeah. While you've been satiating them and avoiding them. You know what I mean? So it's that thing, you can trace literally the patterns of every civilization in history to safety and significance. Why civilizations build their economy on conquering other people, why slavery became a thing, racism, sexism, classism, all of these things are side effects of the notion of that. And when you get people to address that in themselves, all those patterns that you see in human behavior and history actually start to change. And so it becomes this thing where it's not like we're just animals. It's, yes, we have a part of that, but there's something about being more consciously aware that explores another capacity of life. And so it's not enough now to say that we're just animals of beasts. It's like we're still something more.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And you want to be able to own that, because that's what also keeps you keeping the primal essence of you in check in a healthy way.
The fact that we even have morality goes beyond animals to such a degree. It's been forever since people, you know what I mean? I mean, gorillas don't care. They're just going to eat and then kill each other and fight over, they're not really.
But they do have they do, even animals have a certain capacity of consciousness.
Right.
And in nature, there's almost like a built-in sense of morality, meaning that they feel automatically their connection to the all. Whereas human beings, we are consciously aware enough to have the ability to choose to do that.
We've evolved to the point where in society and technological dependence, we're almost more brain and less heart, right? So heart I would just use as the metaphor for connection. I mean, that's how I see it. But actually, my girl had a cool little quote she said to me today. She was like, truth is the bridge to wisdom, and then our throat chakra is the bridge between the mind and the heart, right? So like it's the connection. So when we speak our truth, like the whole point is like the pursuit of truth, and that's what makes us different. And then if you kind of connect it even with, I love symbolism, obviously I always have. I just love it. But so mythology, true or not, doesn't matter, but the symbology of it is dope.
Yep.
And Orpheus from Greek mythology, he was like the greatest lyre player, right? And like and lyricist and poet and singer.
Right.
And his songs were about God and creation and creatorhood, and they brought man from animal nature more into the human nature.
Yep.
And his songs were so good that they were better than the siren songs. So when Jason goes to get the golden fleece, he's sent on this guaranteed to fail mission, and he takes the Argonauts, and they're on this ship, and the sirens come up and they start singing. So the sirens, for anybody that's listening that's unfamiliar with Greek mythology, the sirens are a group of like almost evil mermaids that have these beautiful songs that when man hears it, he's unable to resist it. And their sole purpose was they were created as, malicious, I don't know, mermaids, I guess. It's fucking weird, but it is what it is. But these like sexy, malicious mermaids, but their whole purpose, they can only exist as long as their song takes man off of his path. And you think about some of the bad music out there, right? So he's taking, the sirens are singing, and Jason and them are all getting ready to go over there. And then Orpheus gets up and plays his song. And he wanted to go on the mission with Jason. He's like, I promise you, I'll be the reason you succeed. So he plays his song, and his song is so beautiful that it actually overpowers siren songs. Yep. So all the sirens kill themselves but two, and they're the only two that are left for Odysseus's Odyssey. But it's just kind of interesting, like how there can be such beautiful truths or deceptive lies within music or arts and stuff like that. Obviously, I know you, and so Kevin and I actually met through an acting audition.
Yeah.
I should never even end up getting made. So I don't know.
I agree.
but it was actually super cool. Like, so I moved down to Florida 8 years ago now, based off of, I literally just heard a voice in my head one time when I was teaching, and it was like, how come you're not down in Florida? Couldn't think of an answer for a fucking week. Told everybody, And everybody was like, that's crazy, but that sounds like you, so whatever.
Yeah.
And then I drove down, looked up an audition, snuck in, convinced them that they lost my resume, got it, or got to the next round. And it was this like, it was at this badass, it was the Eden Rock, I think.
Yeah.
Right? It was at the Eden Rock.
Yep.
And then, so the first person selected for the show was Kevin, and then I was second. And then I was just like, I saw him teaching people how to meditate there. Yeah. So then I was like, dude, I've always wanted to learn how to meditate, like da-da-da. And then that's how me and Kevin became good friends. And he kind of became my spiritual guru, more or less, like teacher.
Wow.
But
and how the knowledge spreads.
Kind of where I would connect that would be, so at that point I never had acting classes. I just improv'd and was fortunate enough that it worked.
Right.
The best thing I ever heard in acting class was acting is simply being truthful in a fake situation.
Yes.
Right. So if you think about that in the arts, that's good art.
100%.
And then bad art or bad acting is like somebody's overacting and they're trying to overdo it and they're faking it in a fake situation and just like double whammy.
Exactly.
That's an interesting way to think about it, honestly.
It's so cool. Like you would think,
it's like
right?
you put yourself in someone's shoes and you try to act as truthfully as you would in
as
that
you would
situation.
To the moment in the story. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Even though the story is a story, but you're trying to draw real emotion.
Right. It's like you're having a real experience of the story and you're presenting that to the world. Right. And we all, as the audience, when you're witnessing someone authentically embodying that expression, and it lands for you. Like you watch the movie, and you're like, oh,
or like someone cries,
yeah,
and it makes
exactly.
you
You're with
cry,
it, yeah. As opposed to people, and you're like, ugh, they are overselling it, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just
Nicolas Cage. I was thinking he overacts the shit out of everything, dude. I can't
Nicolas
watch
Cage
it.
is not a good actor? I thought he was incredible.
He's got a bunch of great movies.
I mean, Ghost Rider, dude. Come on.
But I just always think of him as like an overactor, right?
That's funny.
But what I was going to say is, how do you use that in your current role in Tyler Perry's Sistas?
For sure.
So you're basically the heart, the chick's romance, right?
Essentially, like a love interest, because it's almost like she's torn between me and her previous partner, like her ex, and it's this ongoing thing. But we're starting to grow together in that dynamic. But she still has this pull towards her ex is the narrative. And what's cool for acting too, for me, is, and I've mentioned this to Luke plenty of times. The same breakthroughs I had spiritually happened in all the areas that I'm actually dedicated to in my life. So like acting, because you're genuinely exploring what it means to be a human being. Why does the character think this way, speak this way? What would I do in this situation? What is the context for this? And so you're doing all this like professional human beingness, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
honestly like a
really
master's
dope.
Class in psychology.
100%.
It's helped me in
100%.
all my relationships, not because I'm faking anything, because I'm realer.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I'm not trying to fake
analyzing
anything.
situations on the daily,
Exactly.
almost for a job. Like, wow, if this is going on, how would I feel?
And you're exploring how you can tap into it in a setting. Because when you're on set, right, there's cameras and lights. It doesn't look anything like it does on television, because you're just there's people staring at you with a bunch of equipment. And it's like, so you in that moment are exploring your ability to tap into your imagination, to be so centered and like relaxed about exploring this in that context. Wow. So it demands a greater exploration and understanding of yourself in how you tap into these, and then the conveyance of the story that you're telling, and the ability to do it like you haven't been rehearsing the lines before,
making it authentic,
right? Like actually authentic, like you're living the moment,
right?
Yeah. So for me, it's all been like a blend, because there's even things I discovered in acting that I incorporated into my practice of Creatorhood to get people to do it. So like there's an exercise, like training I call emotional efficacy training, and it's a way of going to the edge of your emotions. So it's like it's showing people how to have fully commanded rage fits.
Efficacy is the ability to get something done because you believe you can get it done, right?
Efficacy is like something being fully done, fully realized, reaching its fuller essence of that. It's like efficacy. So if like the efficacy of your business is your business thriving in its fullest capacity, like it being fully reached, essentially.
Okay.
And so the efficacy of this is that you go to the edge of your emotions to the capacity where you embody that energy as expansive as you can embody it, of which then you're living it from its mature form, not its gateway form, which is a whole nother topic of conversation. And in that exercise, it brings people to the edge of themselves, and it's a practice of how do you actually allow yourself to feel freely, because now you're being asked to deliberately tap in the emotion. And I show you what you do with the body when that emotion comes up, the different ways that emotion is expressed, so it becomes a conscious thing and you become more aware of it when it happens in real time. And then other aspects, I do this thing called the dressing room, where people have to constantly pick identities they play out, and you have to tell us what it looks like in physical. So they'll go like, I'm insecure Kevin, and I like to hold my arm like this, and I hold this. I'm angry Kevin. I don't give a fuck about none of y'all motherfuckers. Right? And they just have to keep switching, because our identities is things that we wear, just like clothes. Like you wear your identity. If you're stepping in a situation, if you're confident Luke, right, or confident Jeremy, or if you're insecure, or if you feel belittled, or if you feel whatever it is, you wear that shit. Like, because you're more than all of it. So when you're playing out identities, it's literally like putting on a costume in the movie of your life, and you're acting shit out from that feeling. So part of the things in the practice is showing people how you do that on a regular, and you do it in a way that makes it a caricature. So you also find more humor in it instead of taking it so personally and so seriously all the time.
Especially if useful for like anger.
100%.
Right? Because that's a negative emotion that could have bad consequences for other people.
Right. Well, there's no such thing as a negative emotion. It's just if you don't know how to be in command of it, you will absolutely act way more destructive with
the
it.
potential for negativity, I guess.
So I remember the directions was dope too, for like from the core practice. One of them from anger.
Oh, the chant spiral, yeah.
The mature transmutation of anger was mature action.
Yeah.
Or I remember like willpower. Sadness, willpower.
Yeah, willpower. So so what I teach in the practice is that with emotional intelligence, there's 6 emotional conduits, like centralized energy centers of emotion, and you experience them either in their natural energetic state, or the limiting version of it, which we call gateway. But they're not positive or negative. What I teach in Creatorhood is how to function from unity consciousness, which is not the same as duality consciousness. So duality consciousness is the belief in separation, the belief in opposition, the belief in scarcity. Mm-hmm. So not only am I separate, we're against each other. This is showing up and it's against me. This is messing me up. I'm messing myself up. All that. It's that battle.
Okay.
Unity consciousness is the belief and recognition of everything is connected as one, right? You're abundant as fuck. Mm-hmm. And everything is literally and genuinely in support of you, not against you.
What do you mean by abundant? Like so emotionally or spirit, like everything.
That you have everything necessary at your disposal in the form of a resource to truly live, give, be, receive everything you possibly could in life.
That's so important because right now with all the woke lords and and all that,
powerful. Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? I feel like in the woke community, some people demonize abundance, but then they'll be like, oh, I'm going to manifest, whatever.
Exactly.
And they don't put in the work. And
right.
They ignore the material reality.
It brings up stuff for them, right? Because you know how there's a primary rule to emotional intelligence, and that primary rule is if I know how to identify and process what I'm feeling, I'll always take responsibility for it.
That's huge. Responsibility. Grant Cardone, even in sales, something super materialistic, always take responsibility. It's never the client's fault. It's never someone else. It's your fault. If you learn how to own that, your life becomes a lot more different. Thinking of abundance rather than scarcity.
Exactly.
There's always more money. There's always more love. There's always more
there's time, energy,
right?
Support, resources, and so that knowing that, the other side of that then is if you don't know how to identify or process it, or you refuse to, you have to blame something outside of you for how you feel, because the energy has to be directed somewhere. Exactly. But instead of a projection, think of it as like an act of avoidance. And the act of avoidance is the desire and pursuit of comfort and validation. So rather than me own this and feel this, which I find it to be uncomfortable and I probably judge it as negative, I would rather pass it off on you so I don't have to face my shit, because that feels more comfortable to me. I can go home feeling self-righteous because you're the piece of shit. And I don't do anything wrong.
You're the one who cut me off in traffic, and I flicked you off, but it's your fault because you cut me off.
Right.
But it's like you just let someone else control you.
Instead of checking in with, why do I feel that way about it?
Right.
Because that question alone could drastically change your life experience.
Curiosity.
Why do you think people tend to gravitate towards victimhood, right? There's a quote I love by Ricky Williams, and it's when you make excuses, you give somebody else the power, right? Or when you make excuses, you remove your own power, which is pretty similar to stuff you're saying.
Yeah.
Why do so many people, I don't know if it's because it's easy and they're ignorant to the fact that they're losing their own power to fix things.
One factor alone, above all else, and then everything else perpetuates, lack of awareness. All misalignments. So I break everything down in life between alignments and misalignments, and like expansion and limitation, not good or bad, right or wrong, positive, negative. Because when you let go of that notion, you're actually more present with what's happening to receive the insight you're looking for. But if you pass something off as just being negative or positive, you're missing the support it's offering. So like any experience that shows up for us, I call it a sacred opportunity, meaning it is genuinely designed to support you one way or another.
Okay.
Right? So if we can use an example of a business, right? If there's a sale happening and the client, like say it's about to happen and then it falls through. The sacred opportunity in that, it will serve two purposes. One, where you are in your own self-acceptance, which keeps you in safety and significance, because that's what love is. And your standard of being a salesman or how you approach people or whatever that is, and you get to look at that from that information when you go, okay, let's see what this experience offered me. Cool, I felt betrayal come up for me. Cool, so I feel betrayed because we had an agreement. So let me honor betray Kevin, and then let me explore what that means to be integrated. So now if, say, something comes up like that, instead of diving into that victimization of playing out that narrative of you did this to me, you go, okay, so what happened in notion that that's the route you chose to take? And then people now have to face their stuff. And now you start creating, because the reason why this is so, to me, I'm so adamant about this is the whole journey of creatorhood as a practice, the whole purpose of the light beings, why all this was created, is to support genuinely, and I mean this wholeheartedly, the evolution of humanity. It's not just a cool self-help development like, oh, maybe I'll just be more at peace in my life, though you do want that.
Right.
It's also, what would it look like for a species and civilization to be in full ownership of itself, in full synergy together, and then look to create what you can do from there. So then the notion of being able to own ourselves in these moments is, cool, instead of blaming you for how I feel, I'm going to process this. Then I'm going to have a conversation with you because something about this interaction is providing a wealth of insight on approach to people, understanding the business, all these different aspects, and what I actually want in my life.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And then you get to do that. And so then you look at it from those two places, how I feel and what it shows me as a standard in my life.
So there's no like true negativity. It's just growth opportunity.
That's it.
I got to explore what it was like for me to feel betrayed or, or this should have happened and it didn't. Maybe I should have worked harder and didn't.
Right. And
absorb it, learn what that feels like, and then see what you can learn so that next time maybe it doesn't happen the same way.
Exactly. And not only next time it doesn't happen, that you get more deliberate about what you want to experience.
Okay.
So
you know what I mean?
What I was going to say is that to me, that's like my biggest concern. That's a huge part of why I want to make the podcast.
Yeah.
Is it be an example of like thinking about thinking, right? Like objective thinking, and just taking ownership, right? Like I don't hide my fucking shadows. I'm pretty out in the open. It's what it is, right? Like there's not many skeletons in my closet. What do you think? Like, it feels like I'm sure everybody throughout history's always felt this way. But it feels like we're in a important, fork in the road for humanity. What do you think the biggest problems like facing humanity are right now?
Without a doubt, it's what's the next stage of human evolution, and that genuinely is the ability to feel freely. As a species, we do not process energy properly, which is why there's still wars, which is why there's such like massive rates of unhealthiness, the way that people die and transition. Like there's a pattern of behavior in humanity right now that is likened to us evolving past where we've been. And in my opinion, and what I've seen with this work I've been doing, is that really is the next stage of human evolution. People's ability to identify their emotions, process the energy, and then know how to use it purposefully. So the reason why that's not only happening is the lack of awareness, which is why anyone would play the victim. Because all misalignment is birthed out of a lack of awareness. The more aware you become, the more you start to restore alignment. Just like when we're aware of our limiting patterns or limiting beliefs, the moment you realize a limiting belief you're holding, you're like, that's silly, why would I believe that? But at the time you established it, it supported wherever you were.
And kept you in that comfort zone.
Exactly.
Exactly. It ties into that.
Exactly. So then you become more aware and you go, oh, well, what do I want to experience instead? Now we're talking. Now we have new space. Now there's new insights, and we can move energy in that direction. When you don't have that awareness, right, you're operating out of the autopilot you already established in your operating system. And we condition and program ourselves. No one actually does that to us. So when we become aware of that, we do that, that self-awareness gives us the opportunity to establish, well, what do I want to experience instead? What is my standard for relationships, for business, for personal health?
Yeah.
And so us in humanity, This self-awareness now is bringing us to the important aspect, because what you're witnessing around the world is where people are wanting people to change what they do so they don't have to deal with their feelings.
Right.
It happens in relationships, happens in society, all these things. And then you see the mark of when people don't feed into that, the benefit that happens for the whole group, because now people have to face their feelings instead of it be acquiesced. So, and this is what happens even in relationship dynamics, where if partners are saying like, I don't like the way this feels, I want you to stop doing that thing. If you don't uncover why your partner's actually feeling that way, you're not going to get to the root of how they could start living in a more aligned, healthy, thriving place. They're just literally wanting you to be responsible for their safety and significance. Just like you'll never be responsible for someone's happiness. You'll never be responsible for whether someone feels safe or not. However, in relationship dynamics, both people in a relationship, or all the people in relationships, depending on the dynamic, are 100% responsible for the quality and the standard of the relationship. So like, if you and I are friends, we're hanging out, I will never make you happy.
Right.
You're either going to feel your own happiness,
right,
and then I will support
that. Okay.
Right.
So both people have 100. It's not 50-50.
Right. Exactly. It's not 50-50. It's 100-100.
Yeah.
Because like if I'm living life and I'm happy, I'm like, I love this, and you don't feel happy, you'll see me doing that and you're like, fuck off, Kevin.
Resentful, yeah.
Right? Yeah, resentful. But if
right,
I'm like, come on, man, get hype, and you're like, yo, you're being fucking silly right now. It's stupid. Right? But if you're like, yo, I'm just having a moment right now, and I really appreciate you being a reflection of my happiness though, and I'm with you because you honor your own happiness, that is the most optimal, authentic way relationships can thrive. And a society that thrives the same way. So this journey that we're on, if we're talking about the next stage of humanity and what's the biggest struggle right now, is exactly that. When people disagree and think other people are stupid for thinking differently than them, rather than it being an exploration of, you think differently, I think differently, let's have a conversation around that. Where could humanity go when we explore together rather than judge each other because we're different?
What about the people that, they want the world to go somewhere else? So they're aware, but they just have different, they want the world to go somewhere else, essentially.
Yeah,
depending on culminating together. And
yes.
They don't care about that. They're aware that you want that, and they don't give a shit. They're like, that's not what I want.
Still a lack of awareness. And it would be exploring why that's what they want. Because what I found, like, I've come across a lot of different people. I've taught this work in a lot of different places, culturally, class-wise, just location, in this country and out of it. And when you start seeing that mass array of people, and when you see people from all ends of spectrums, because I've had clients that were both involved in wars on the opposite sides. I've had people who are abused and been abusers, people who have raped and been raped as clients, molesters and been molested. And when you start to see this many people and you start seeing correlations, everyone feels the same way. That's the trippy thing. Everyone actually feels the same way, but they have different ways on how they handle that. And it plays out. So if someone goes in and down, like, yeah, I am insignificant, none of this matters, and they abuse themselves, they end up correlating with someone who's physically abusive outward. And the person that's physically abusive outward is like, I don't want to feel those insecurities, so I'd rather take it out somewhere else to feel more powerful. And
it's almost like a parasitic relationship.
Exactly, it's like what it is. Because it's literally that reflection of, now what it's actually designed to do when we talk about everything being in support is it's actually designed to show both people where they're playing out the misalignment. Here's where you're not facing your shit. But when you're not that aware, you just reinforce the story until someone becomes aware enough to be like, all right, enough. And then they set a boundary, break this pattern. I'm not putting up with this anymore, right? That you don't have to judge other people to change. Like, you don't have to go, you're a piece of shit, so I'm leaving. It's, I'm no longer living in this type of relationship dynamic.
Okay.
Right? And
that's responsibility.
Exactly. And you don't have to blame other people. So the journey that we're in, where people have a different thought process, like for us in the Light Beings and what we're putting together in an organization I'm starting with another friend of mine called United We Stand, is a way to start getting people to see transparency, synergy, freedom as foundational things of community, and what that actually looks like. Like, what does it mean to live synergistic? And synergy is always the most optimal, most effective choice anyone can make, because that's literally how nature thrives. Everything, because synergy is, everyone recognizes their individual role and they own it, and that they're a part of something greater to contribute to that is now more magnified than they would do on their own. Right? So that's what synergy is. So if we're in a relationship, it's, I know I'm me, you are you. I'm going to own me, you're going to own you. I'm going to take care of me for you, you take care of you for me, and let's take this.
Both people give 100.
Exactly. And where do we go together? We're never against each other. We're just showing up. So even if if something comes up for you and you're like, Kevin, I got to be honest with you, man, I was feeling like this way about it. If I'm in tune and aligned, I go, tell me about that. Right. I go, I'm just really pissed off right now. Okay, so before anything else, feel that.
Right.
Feel that anger for a minute. Just be with it. Let it move through you. And then you feel the anger, then you process. I go, cool, now tell me what the issue is for you. And then you'll say, well, I just feel like, you kind of disregarded my time and this and that and that. And I go, thank you for bringing that to my awareness, because I want my standard to be, I'm on point with my fucking time, right, and I'm considerate of others, right? And so then we're navigating it, and this type of conversation is what authentic communication looks like. It's, I'm aware that there are things I'm working through and things that I want, and standards I would like to be at. I'm aware that the same is true for you. And I am aware that as long as we hang out together, we're going to uncover a lot of that stuff. Okay. And can I still remember that we're in this together when it does come up? Not because I feel this way, it must mean you're against me, which is what happens in society a lot. Oh, you think differently than me, so you must be against me. So the people that come to me and say, I don't want the world like that, I see it as an opportunity. And I'll give you an example of this. I love telling this story because it's such a shining example of this. I was on a bus, this is years ago, and I was riding this bus, and this one guy, shaved head, swastika'd up, right, calling me all kinds of stuff, fucking niggas, and blah, 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 just going in, right? Years before this version of me, I would have easily been fighting him on the bus, right? Right. I had got to a point at this space where all I could see was a brother. Like, this guy is a part of this game with me, right, in humanity. And something about his journey has brought him to this point where he thinks this behavior is his best choice, but it's really to avoid something else. So when I'm not giving him the feedback he's looking for, right, I just start, he kicks it up a little bit, but then I just get curious about him. So I just start asking him questions like, how do you feel when you say those things? Do you feel better about you? Do you think that means you're better than me? What's that? And then he responds to that like, what are you talking about? Don't be doing that. And goes like this. So then I just break all that down. I go, look, what's wrong? What's really going on? And I keep asking questions out of genuine curiosity. So all of his defenses start to soften because he recognizes
he wanted you to be
safe.
Defensive.
He wanted to be defensive because that reinforces his narrative. Right. Because, and I'll tell you why we do that based on why he got to this point. So through the conversation, what we reveal, his girlfriend left him for an athlete. Athlete happened to be black. He lost his job. Oh, and before all of this, he had an awful relationship with his father. Right. Completely messy relationship with his father. Right. Didn't feel accepted by him. Never did anything good enough. All that stuff. So he sits with that I don't belong space. And then nothing I do is good enough space. Then he has a girl that he says is the love of his life. She leaves him, right? And then he loses his job. And it's like you can just see the movie of his life. He loses his job, comes home one day, and these Mexican dudes are breaking into his car, and he goes to stop them. They beat his ass, right? So like perpetual distortion of life, right? So one day he comes across a group who hates people like he hates people. Come hang out with us. Now there's a space he feels accepted.
Oh, yeah. A
shared resonance. So he's like, yeah, I'll adopt this because you guys are like taking me in.
We all just want community.
Right? What's up?
We all just want community.
Everyone wants to know
even
that
the
they're
hate
a part
groups
of something.
Just want community.
Exactly. You see what I'm saying? So it's literally inherent in all of us. So when he was sitting with me, I was no longer fitting his narrative about life. Because a person of color who's not reacting to him, who's actually staying in connection with him, no matter how hard he works to steer me otherwise.
Wow.
And now, because I kept staying in curiosity with him, and I was more interested in connection than being right, his heart opens. By the time this conversation's over, we're holding each other, hugging, and he's bawling, and I'm bawling with him. And it's like, this is
because he knows he's been wrong the whole time.
And it's like, fuck, these things I got to
the
address.
Limitations he put, the comfort he wasn't willing to.
You see what I'm saying? So he was looking for comfort and validation. That's what he found in the group he was with that was just about hate. So now in this moment, his narrative changes. That space is what is not practiced enough in humanity. And that's why,
oh my God, dude.
Like social media, society, like, so even with the politics, all these things, like everyone's like, Democrat, Republican, I don't give a shit about any of that. Like, I actually do have I make a very clear choice, and like I'm unbiased to all of this stuff. I don't have a stake in the game of that. I have a stake in the game of I care about where we go as a species. That's literally what I stand for.
Yeah.
So everyone's included in that.
Because you all have to go together.
Exactly. Period.
So if we,
like we're all in this together.
Nuclear
no
warfare kills everybody.
Right. Exactly. You see what I'm saying? So I'm in this together. Like that's literally what I stand for. When I say truth, and and I have a notion about your truth. We talked about before. Like there's a difference between truth. Like the idea of your truth isn't actually truth. Truth is the thing that never changes because truth isn't subjective. There's how you honestly feel in the moment. There's what's true for you.
There's perspective.
There's perspective. Yeah. There's like that's what's true for you, but that changes.
Yeah. It should change.
It will.
Yeah.
Right? It just does. Whether it should or not, it just does. Like it just
it's the
you
truth.
will feel differently. Yeah.
Right.
And so what's underneath that is the truth, and that's the thing that says you're gonna keep exploring more of you. You're gonna feel differently at different times. That's truth. You want how I honestly feel, what feels most alive for me, what feels true for me in this moment is this thing. I'm still more than that. So even if it's a passionate thing, like I live for music and that's my truth. No, you live for music and that's one aspect of you.
Right.
You also live for a lot more other things than music because you're still more than that.
Of course.
So in the nation of the practice with truth is realizing that underneath everyone's bullshit, underneath all the stories is the truth, which is you are a part of something greater than you. And you are that greatness inside of you. And power isn't something you have, it's what you are. So you don't ever give it away and no one takes it from you. Right? Because it's just life force energy.
Right.
So then when you realize that people just want to feel a part of something and feel received and heard and seen, then even the people that go, I don't want the world to be unified, that's not true. They still want that belonging space. They're just only functioning from a certain space of awareness of what it means. Just like building America. We want to have Declaration of Independence, but don't include slaves and don't include the Native Americans. Right? It's like, it's not all inclusive. So it was built on a misalignment, even though the premise of the idea is solid.
Right. In writing, functionality, it works.
Right.
In practice, they fucked up.
Right. And that was a lack of awareness. You see what I'm saying? Like, because it was uncomfortable for them. Like when it came to the notion of talking about, and even women, like when they still treated women as second class, it's like, oh, men should be free, but don't include women in that either.
Yeah.
It's like there's all these aspects of it. So all those misalignments left unchecked lead to louder and louder distortions. And that's where you see the buildup of using someone's skin color as a stigma for difference or better than or worse than. Using someone's sex orientation as a way to do that. Using someone's class as a way to do that. Anything. Yeah. Those are all the ways when we don't know how to process our own feelings and then reinforce the self-righteousness of that, we create the divide. But the divide still isn't the optimal thing. Nature is going to find its way to synergy, whether people like it or not. And then we're either in that journey going to experience that in a super chill, effortless, dope way, or a sufferable way because we fight it every single choice we make. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So my thing is one of my biggest concerns.
Yeah,
people.
join after that. Wow, that's incredible.
One of my biggest concerns with people is I mean, it's just piggybacking on that. I talked about it in the last episode. Is just the extremism, right? Like debate class. It's not even necessarily about being right or being truthful. It's about not being wrong, right? So if you look at politics, most political ads aren't about what the candidate's going to do. It's what the other guy.
Yes.
So the other guy's a dick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that was actually one of my main complaints in the Georgia. For the Democrats, all the ads were, these people suck. And then the Republicans, all the ads were, well, these people suck. I was like, are any of you guys doing anything? Or are you just telling me they're not good?
Dude, yes. Like
that's like, what the heck, man?
Yo, I was included in two Instagram preferred friends groups on both sides. So like someone brought me in one for Trump and someone brought me in for Biden. And I didn't prefer,
mirrors.
Literally everyone was saying the same thing.
So weird.
And they just had no clue. Like but there was no conversation between them. It was
Talk
like
about an echo chamber. I mean,
exactly.
Jesus.
And that's what's happening in the world. Is like unless you are more aware to catch it, you're going to constantly look for ways to reinforce your own bias.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And because you just want to feel right. Right? In that space of, so even if someone else is wrong, it's like
you don't even want to feel right. These people don't necessarily want to feel right. I mean, they want to feel right.
They just
want to not be wrong.
Exactly.
Right. But I'm saying when I say they want to be right, it's they want to be right that they're wrong. You see what I'm saying? Like people are still looking for that, no matter what.
Yeah.
It's like as long as I can still feel a sense of, right? Then I'll reinforce it. And so what this journey is, and what I do with Creatorhood, is a way of getting people to have to face that. And instead of looking for ways to cop out, looking for ways to excuse themselves, looking for ways to avoid, you actually realize you're safe enough to face it, safe enough to feel it, safe enough to move through it, and then safe enough to create something greater beyond it. And like, we'll get people in rooms that have all kinds of conflicts together. It's a charge clearing where you get them to look at each other and then address what feelings are coming up, but not you make me feel, just I feel, because no one makes you feel anything. Right. So it's I feel. And then once that part happens, they take ownership. Now we start talking about the way they experience whatever. And when people share their experiences with you, it's not actually a projection. It's still a reflection in your reality. And here's what I mean by that. Even with so you know how a projector works, right? Mm-hmm. It takes an image inside a machine and then it displays it on the wall. What you're witnessing wherever it displays is the reflection of the projector's reality. Our lives are like that. If I were to come to you and say, you're an asshole and you're acting like this and that, and you're not, I'm not projecting my story on you. I'm genuinely telling you what I'm experiencing. I'm telling you my story on the wall.
Right.
You're then going to look at that, and your experience then is someone showing up in my reality saying this to me. How do I feel about that? And that's your story. And if you can own that and they can own theirs, now we have a conversation of, here's where I'm working through these things, here we're through, and what do we want to experience instead? How we want to approach each other instead. And that creates a whole different dialogue. The ownership part, though, is not negotiable. It's mandatory. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you're going to say kind of understanding, but what would support the world most right now, in your opinion? This kind of just naturally transitions.
Right, exactly that.
Yeah.
Ownership. Yeah, ownership and genuinely feeling freely. Like, one of the easiest things to show people, one of the simplest exercises in the practice is when you feel something, sit down and do nothing. Literally just be present with it. So when people have anxiety come up, it's like, anxiety is not a disease, by the way, right? It's literally a side effect of not processing the emotion of fear and not having a reference point for yourself. So when that energy isn't properly processed, the body finds ways to communicate to you where things are out of alignment. So you may be walking down the street and all of a sudden it's like panic attack and anxiety. That's your body going like, you got some shit that isn't processing properly. That if you actually sat down with that, instead of look for a pill or instead of look for ways to avoid it, you're actually telling your body and your mind, we're safe. I'm with this energy. And so your body then won't tense up with the energy. It'll actually let it move.
Would it be the same thing maybe for like depression? Like people who are
basically
sad?
the same thing.
Perfect. So think like this. Depression is actually anger turned inward. And what I mean by anger turned inward is that if you feel sad about something or guilty about something, and then you think you're wrong for feeling that, or like, I shouldn't be sad, I should be happy about it, then you have a judgment on yourself, and you take this very powerful energy, which is anger, and as a gateway, the mature form of anger is willpower, right? Meaning the will, the guiding essence of the power you are, right? Willpower, towards yourself in a judgmental way. So you take this massive amount of energy that's literally designed to take things from spirit through all kinds of dimensions to be a materialized expression on yourself. And so that energy weighed down starts to make everything gray and murky and settle. So when it comes to depression, every client I've ever had that was in depression that we shifted out of it sustainably just got them angry. It was like getting them to understand how to express their anger. And what's dope is this literally is the pattern response. They get to anger, they let the anger out. Do you know what the very next thing is that happens after they do that?
No.
They laugh.
I was going to say they probably laugh.
Every time.
Wow.
Every time. They laugh. And they all of a sudden are just like, because for all the narratives we have about labels and diagnoses and all these things, they perpetuate narratives rather than actually address what's really going on. And the majority of people's illnesses in the world are literally emotion.
Yeah.
It's things not properly addressed and attuned. I don't know how to process these things, so they can
manifesting themselves in the body.
Exactly. And then you do things that reinforce it. You eat things that reinforce it. You do play out things that reinforce it. And so the next stage of humanity, the thing that people can use more of is owning themselves, feeling their feelings, and being willing to have an open, honest, vulnerable conversation. That humanity would change in a day.
Yeah.
And I think a key thing too would be throwing sense of humor.
Yes, actually have fun with it. Yes,
like have fun with it, right? Like you got to laugh. So I mean,
playful.
literally today, I think about it all the time. I'm telling you, like, it's weird, but when things are going absolutely terrible for me, I usually just crack up.
Legit.
So like when I was getting my business started, I was like, I'd be sleeping on the floor, like getting it rolling. I'd wake up, scream like "fuck" in the morning, and then right after that, I would just like crack up and laugh. This morning, I was going for a run. I went grab a coffee right after. I'm crossing the street. There's a car coming, so I go to speed up. I got like this new white hoodie on, spill it on my left arm. So I go to switch it over to my right, spill it on my right. I stop in the middle of the road and just start dying laughing.
Legit.
And I can see the car processing this and just looks at me. And I was like, I don't know. And then he starts cracking up, right?
Wow.
But I haven't taken myself seriously
Exactly.
probably since I developed synesthesia and everybody thought I went crazy.
Legit.
Because it literally had to take that out of me. Because it was like, yo, everybody thinks you're fucking crazy, Luke. Maybe you are. Fuck it. Like,
yeah.
you know what
So
I mean?
like,
Exactly.
but not that you didn't take yourself seriously in the sense of like owning yourself.
Oh, no. I'm
Just
exactly.
like not letting your anger overwork to the
Right.
point where you couldn't work through it.
Yeah, and just to remember that like life is
I
you can
definitely-
enjoy it. Like you can be silly, you can be playful, and you can enjoy life. Like
Yeah.
and then like
I definitely have a ton of ego still.
Right.
But I
it can be
understand
used
that.
for good, like obviously.
Like I understand that about myself. Like
Yeah.
I wanted my own podcast because
Actually,
I
have
think
to
my
learn
voice is
more.
important. So that's a level of ego, but I'm completely comfortable with that.
Right.
I'm comfortable with the fact that everybody's going to agree with that. So I think it's important to be able to laugh at yourself so you don't get that anger or that depression because, again, I don't really have
Exactly.
skeletons because I can just laugh at my shit.
right, and that's again that's a notion of like you owning your sovereignty. When you're more aware of yourself and you have more of that safety and significance within, you are more playful in life. You find more humor in everything. There's more wonderment. You're so open to the
Right.
possibilities of things. And the two essences of like masculine and feminine energy, which is a whole nother topic, the playfulness and the responsibility, it's both. That you're responsible for yourself and you play. Like example of this with my son, I talk about this all the time. With my son, we'll roll around in the dirt and the mud in the back.
Just at the hour mark.
Hose in, right? Put hose in the circle, and we're like, and he's like, Zen's like, come on, daddy, come get your hands in this. Isn't that awesome? Doesn't this feel amazing? Right? Like he's all in it. Doesn't this feel amazing? And then we'll go through that, and I'm in it because I love rolling around the dirt, getting in my natural space. I like climbing rocks and mountains. Like I love the nature stuff. I'm a huge
Kevin's
nature
kid is the
buff.
coolest kid in the world, on the side note.
I could
Appreciate that,
imagine.
brother. Yeah. I appreciate that. Legit.
Kevin's been raising him on this stuff since he was like 2.
Yo, it's so
He's gonna
dope.
be
So
He's
like
gonna be a killer.
the kid is wildly mentally and cognitively and like emotionally mature.
How old is he?
He just turned 10
Oh wow.
in January.
What is he? What are the hobbies? Is he just
Dude.
following you like outdoor stuff?
He loves
meditates.
outdoor stuff. Meditate, loves animals, loves nature. He should do like, and we have dope. And now that he's this old too, because you haven't seen him in a while. Now that he keeps growing and he's having more of his voice, he starts having those in-depth conversations with me. He asks questions like if there's something coming up for him, and because his mom and I aren't together, so like if there's things at the house he wants to talk about it, like he opens himself up to share. And we have conversations, and because I don't have a bias, like I'm not in this to win or be right or be like, yeah, that's why. I can express to him what's happening in every space to get him to look at it from a more clear perspective, and he explores it from that.
Wow.
And it's so dope. So like, and then he'll check in with me just to see how things are going, and because I've been raising like this, about him knowing his sovereignty, also understanding what he's a part of, it's more consideration. So like when he was 2 and even younger, I can go, Zen, daddy's gonna take a shower real quick. What would you like to do while I do that? And he would check and go, I want to do this. Cool. So you do that. I'll do this. I'll see you as soon as I come out. Because he had the freedom to make the decision, he does it. He didn't get up.
Instead of being like, hey, I'm going to go take a shower, don't leave the house.
Exactly.
Then he's like, well, I wasn't going to, but now that you told me not to,
Right.
what
and
if
then
I
they
want to go
start
outside?
getting into shit. They start doing because
Right.
and you'll notice this pattern in life. When people feel like they're making decisions for themselves, right? They're way more receptive of you, and they own themselves more. And there's a very important line to dance on in relation to that. So like for Zen, as he's a kid, there's certain things, like if it was up to him, he'd eat ice cream every day, like for dinner and
Same.
breakfast and lunch
Same,
and everything,
Zen.
right?
Same.
Yeah, so, I feel that, and I get it, right? I'd eat pumpkin pie all the time if I did also enjoy other
I love
things,
both.
right? So so then I would give him parameters. I would go, okay, so what do you want for dinner? We'll do this. These are the options. He makes a decision, and then so he starts getting comfortable and deciding for himself what he wants. Now he has a clear idea of himself. And then it's like, cool. And now between these vegetables, it's not, do you want vegetables or not, right?
Right.
It's spinach or broccoli or spinach and carrots. And he's like, cool, spinach, carrots. And then he eats spinach like I do. Doesn't want dressing on it, just eats it like leaves, like chips. And so now with that being said, he continues to be more open and receptive. And now when I ask him to do certain things, even ask him twice, he gets it. If he's with me when I have events, he's receptive. If he has to get my attention, he'll come up, excuse me, Daddy. I'm like, 1 second. Yes, Papa. We talk. And it's like everything becomes that deliberate because there's a recognition. And now in the space where he's at, like what I was mentioning with the responsibility and play, we can roll around, we do all this stuff, and then I get up and I go grab a towel and put it on the floor, rinse ourselves off because we're wet because I don't want to track all that stuff in the house. So there's the raw play essence of life. And then he understands that too. So he's like, yeah, I won't track this. I won't just go in reckless abandon, smear mud all over the place, even though I love the chaos of it. Because as a kid, like they're chaos. Like I bring clothes out of the dryer, I start folding them. His natural inclination is to run and dive into the clothes while I'm folding them. I was like, oh, look at that. Well placed together clothing. Destroyed. Because that's the energy of playfulness. And then he knows there's a time for it and another time to be more responsible, put your clothes away, and he starts to do that on his own. So there's this space I find with life and with other friends' kids that I've had a chance to play that with, and even my godkids I help raise, I'm watching that unfold in them more. And then I started realizing when I got teenager clients and parents who wanted me to work with their kids, or I started noticing other people in their teenage years and I started reflecting on mine, that's where the rebellious teenager phase comes from. All the times parents or other authority or guardians use their physical size or role as a way to get what they want instead of synergy, meaning work together to guide. So like instead of telling Zen, because I said so.
I used to get that all the time.
We all got that. It's like that was the note of that.
Because
that
I
era.
said so, because I'm your dad.
Right. And
like, well, what does that mean?
Exactly. It's like,
I'm your kid.
It's like, there's nothing I can do with that information, bro.
Yeah.
Right. It's like with Zen, even if he's in trouble for anything and we talk about it, like there's consequences. So we address the consequences, but the consequences are always designed in ways that urge his growth one way or another. And when he has to own himself, I'll tell him things and he'll go, why? And I'll go, this is why, because when you make these decisions, here's what's on the table. So now he has more insight when I'm not around to work with. But if I say, because I said so, then his note, like what it was for me was, cool, so don't do it when you're around. Noted.
Yeah.
Right? But now there's no awareness of consequences, potential impacts, these kind of things that he starts to gain from that.
I used to always want to watch R-rated movies when I was a kid.
Legit.
So I hung out with older kids. My parents would never let me. And the reason is because I said so. You're not going to watch that in our house. What did I do? I go to my friend's house and watch it.
Exactly.
So It didn't work. It just worked to make, I don't know, maybe it was to make them feel better. I don't know.
Exactly. And because whenever parents, if parents don't often want to explain stuff, there's a discomfort around the idea of it. And part of the issue with parenting up into this era was a lack of vulnerability.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm telling you, vulnerability is the source of our greatest strength.
And that would extend into the world and make us all see each other that
because
way.
Then all of a sudden men are feeling their frustration. Exactly.
Truthful. It's being truthful,
Exactly.
right? How would you be vulnerable? How would you express that?
Right.
And I remember, not to get too much into the acting, but one of the coolest things, same teacher that taught me that, Todd Durkin, if he's listening, you're the man, was whatever the line is, almost do the exact opposite of what at least when you're new, what your initial reaction is, right? So if the line is "I love you," or let's say I'm gonna kill you, the natural reaction when you read that would be like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, right? But it's so much more powerful. You just look almost like gently, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
And it was like,
exactly.
I remember being like, whoa. If you almost kind of do the opposite emotional feel, it creates more of a feeling, and it causes you to actually go into it to how would you react if that is how you said it, and then you naturally become that instead of being like a computer and manufacturing the feeling.
Exactly.
Before I take us down that rabbit hole, so getting towards the end, we'll try to make this helpful for some of the parents or even people trying to learn how to meditate. I know Amanda wanted us to ask you, and
I got you.
And I got to thank Mike and Amanda every time with Business Radio X hosting us, and she wants to learn some meditation tips.
Love it.
So Kevin's the one that I mean, there's no wrong way to meditate.
Agreed.
But the
100%.
first person that really made a difference in the way I meditated was Kevin. How would you explain to somebody who's listening and might want to learn how to meditate? And I was actually just talking to one of my buddies about this the other day, and he was saying, like, he was still in this terrible situation. He's like, but I meditate now. And I was like, right, you meditate for probably, 10, 20 minutes a day, but you're in that situation for 8 hours a day? The fuck you think is stronger? You know what I mean? It's like, first, you got to remove yourself from the situation. But second off,
100%.
let's say somebody's trying to learn how to meditate or get into that space. How would you explain to somebody like that?
For sure. So, and actually, before I even start that, I'll just say a quick dispelling of misconception for everyone listening. When you say things like meditate, I would like to meditate, but it's difficult for me, or I I can't stop my thoughts, or
It's the
all
most
those
common
things.
one. That's the most common one.
Common thoughts. So 2 things in this. 1, meditating is an exercise. That's it. If you do it 5 times and you don't feel like you have a command of it, you keep going with it. Just like hitting the gym. You're not going to squat once and be like, cool, I got strong legs forever.
Yeah,
right?
no.
It's like, it's a practice to develop those muscles. It's a practice to develop commanding your attention. And the other part of that is you will never stop thoughts. That's not how it works, right? There is a space. Like, thoughts are streams. They're a constant running torrent of energy, right? Just constantly flowing out of ideas. This is a whole nother topic. Sign up for my course if you want to know more, right? It's like they just run. When you're meditating, the whole point is you start tapping into the still spaces between thoughts. So you allow thoughts to do what they're designed to do. You're just shifting into a space where you're just being present with everything. And as you do that, that's where the notion of command comes in. You don't want to control thoughts or control your mind. You want everything to operate how it's designed to operate, because when you let things operate how they're designed to operate, they flow.
Synergy.
Period.
It ties back into what you were saying before, the
Period.
command.
Exactly.
It's
It's like I'm going to sit down now and just observe things around me. I'm going to sit down now and just be present with my breath.
So just in a way, being present would be a simplified form of
Yeah, that's exactly how you
the
get started.
concept.
Exactly. Like, and my definition of presence is to be fully engaged in the moment. And this is the action I show that I go fully engaged in the moment. That's all it means to be present. So meditation is a way of exploring the notion of that in a dedicated exercise or modality. So there's a lot of different ways you can explore meditation, but if we're talking about just developing it, if you're not used to doing it, right? The simplicity of two ways we're doing it. We have a primary tool in our practice called heart consciousness, right? Which is a way of tapping into your senses and starting to shift into that space of meditative capacity.
You're more feeling than thinking.
Yeah, while being aware. Exactly. You shift out of thought, genuinely shift out of thought. If you practice it, you'll shift into a space where you literally won't hear a thought. And it's a funny thing because your mind will go, the idea of this is the funny part about it. Your mind will go, we're not thinking anything, but you won't even be thinking that. There's just going to be this awareness of, this is different, but it won't be a thought that this is different. It's a really interesting thing to find a language to speak. Yeah, it really is. So a way that we get people there in this particular practice, and then I'll talk about some basics for meditation that aren't necessarily this primary tool. But in heart consciousness, we access it by what I call the conversion breath, which is simply a deep inhale through the nose where you breathe into your belly. So let's all do that together.
It's almost
now,
like
right?
before a squat.
Legit. Right, yeah. So breathe that in. And then when you exhale, it's a high sigh where the top of the throat meets the back of the nasal passage. And it'll sound like a... And let yourself fade out. You practicing this? Okay, cool. Making sure you're with us. Okay, so let's do that again. A deep inhale through the nose. Then high sigh, fade out. And then one more time, deep breath in. Exhale out. And now just notice everything that you hear in this moment. Just be aware of everything that you hear. And then be aware of everything that you feel. The chair you're sitting on, your hands on the table, the clothes on your body, just be with that. And then be aware of everything you see. Just look around the room. Just notice different things, colors, textures, shapes, patterns, dimensions. And then close your eyes with it. And take another deep breath in. Fade out in that high sigh. And keeping your eyes closed, just notice everything you hear again. And then take another deep breath in. And fade out, high sigh. And then just slowly open your eyes. Right, just be with everything as it is.
That's trippy shit.
It's cool too, right? Like for anybody that's listening, like as thoughts come, you just let it come from one side and go out the other.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way
It
to
just
not
flows.
control it. Is like almost picture it as a physical object just going from one side to the
and
other.
you're just watching it like, noises, sounds, thoughts, feelings, cool. And you keep practicing that, and then you're gonna stay in this space where you'll literally be observing it all without any definition or label. So it won't be like, this is a microphone. It's gonna be like this, right? There won't be a story to it. And that space is where you start shifting beyond thought. And so just the practice of the conversion breath alone, right? Breathing in and letting it fade out. You find this space of relaxation that is accessible to all of us that we don't use enough, where it's like you just fade on the exhale. And just for that alone is a brief moment of like,
yeah, just the breathing alone gets you
Because
into
you
that.
breathe autonomously, but when you focus on it, it's attention derived on something you could do on your own.
exactly.
So instead of thinking about thinking, you're thinking about breath.
Exactly. So then you're not thinking about your normal thoughts. You're thinking about something you just do.
Exactly. And then you're just observing, and then it goes beyond thought. And so like even witnessing your senses, it's like all of a sudden you're just listening to things. And you're just like,
Yeah. I felt like my hearing was for a
magnified,
second
right?
magnified.
Your
It's
sen-
like
your
I was on
senses
mushrooms
step
or
up.
something.
Senses, exactly.
Well, because when you do mushrooms, the reason why your senses are heightened is your default setting. That's what psychology actually calls it. It shuts off. So your default setting actually dulls your senses. And when that turns off, your senses actually get heightened.
Heighten. Because yes. The default setting of physical reality leads you to the default setting of the truth of your existence, which is spirit. Spirit pervades everything.
Right.
So, and that's what the heightened space
Yeah.
is, because in that space, there's nothing in the way. It's literally just the full resonance of all things that you experience. It's really dope.
We were talking about this with Rock last time from Revive Wellness. Shout out to Rock, man. That dude's
Rock
the man.
he's awesome.
Honestly, we're 2 for 2 on guests right now. You and Rock
Yeah.
kill it. Our listeners are going to gain a ton, right?
Love it.
So like, it's interesting. Just we I was explaining that to him, and then after he had a bunch of questions about it and stuff like that. But it was just kind of the way the media portrays some of these like psychedelics or different things like that, right? It's the way the media used to portray marijuana in the 90s.
Exactly.
Like, somebody hits a joint and then they're flying on the ceiling.
Right.
Right.
You smoke weed for the first time, you're like, what?
Yeah. And it
I thought I was
creates
going to fly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
This
what I
isn't
did this
happening
for.
at all.
Yeah.
And you lose all trust.
Yeah.
You're like, fuck, they're lying to me the whole time. Jesus Christ. This is
Web of
bullshit.
lies. Well, yeah, man. It's just kind of cool. So, but before we ended, last question I wanted to ask you was, what did the Light Beings offer to that as an organization for, what would help the world the most as an organization and community?
Shit.
And
So-
technically, side note,
Yeah.
you guys are officially considered a spiritual group,
ministry.
a ministry.
Yep.
So
Wow.
Kevin's considered a minister.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody wants to get married, hire him for that too.
Yeah, indeed. I've already done a few.
Yeah,
and yeah. So I got the Light Beings, the distinction as a ministry, with Creatorhood as our spiritual practice, and it's been dope to explore that angle too, which is a whole nother topic of conversation when you realize.
But we'll have you on a couple times.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
time you're up shooting with Tyler Perry, Doc.
Yo, consider it done.
Yeah.
First off, you got to show Tyler Perry this so we can get a little more insight to your thoughts, and man.
Yeah. We actually, we have beautiful conversations, him and I, like about the different belief systems, our spiritualities, and this respect. And it's always cool to see where we resonate and where the differences are. And he's so open to having those conversations. He's so personable. It's really dope. Yeah, like it's amazing. So shout out to Tyler for the show, the opportunities, and what he's built.
Oh my God,
It's incredible.
Ridiculous.
what he's done for Atlanta alone.
Period. And what's dope is he's still personable. Like he's really built this, and when you see the way he works, you recognize how he built it. But he's still very much involved. He's still, accessible, still open, and still there to support people. And it's a really dope thing to witness. And he has such an insane attention to detail, which is phenomenal. So
You said he's still super hands-on. You said he's still directing your show.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Yeah, and he writes all this stuff too, and it's just he's a machine, dude. He's like on it. So actually, one other thing, just on the meditation tip, while we're still at it, always start with just being where you are. That's a perfect place to start. You don't necessarily have to close your eyes yet. Just breathe and literally just pay attention to things, and that process will start developing in your mind the notion that you're safe enough to just be where you are. And then the focusing on the breath creates a channel of focus that generates energy. So, and everyone can meditate. It's literally not something reserved for anybody. It's genuinely a practice, yo. Like, so if you're just not used to it, that's literally just telling you where you haven't developed those muscles,
like
not that
working
you're
out.
incapable. Yeah. Just
Meditation
just
comes
wanted
from
to
the
make sure
word
that's
for
clear.
thought.
Legit.
And every single person thinks.
100%. It's like literally just thought in a more expansive, relaxed state.
Yeah.
It's like I'm thinking without the stress, you know? So just want to put that out there. So with the light beings, wait, did you have something else you want to share before we tap into that?
No, man.
Okay.
Your show.
You know,
We're here
I
to
could
learn.
talk
Literally, the whole concept of this podcast is, again, free, unrestricted game, like life, da-da-da.
Love it.
But it's, right, I was talking about on the last one, the allegory of the cave, and the concept is if you force things on people, you know, they get angry and da-da-da-da.
Right.
But if I want to learn, so we have interesting people that I find interesting,
Yep.
and
You
we
learn
have
together.
open dialogues, then people can see learning happening
100%.
in a
Instead of being like
instead
forcing
of
people. Yeah.
instead of a
Exactly.
100%.
Exploring different ideas,
100%.
live, unfettered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
then
that's, man, so important. And that's the notion of what unity is too. You know, it's like unity is not everyone being the same, everything being the same. You know, like unity is the diverse nature of unlimited creative potential working together as one. So if we're willing to have conversations with different perspectives, ask questions, we're exploring all the possibilities of life and how much we all can actually be together in that. And we can have arguments, we can have disagreements, and still recognize that we still honor each other, love each other, connect with each other, all those dynamics. And that's such an important piece to the evolution and is, to me, what the light beings represent. When I started the light beings, it literally prompted out of two things.
You felt like you were called to do it from the source, right?
100%.
I remember that story.
Without question. Like there was things that started showing up, because even this journey for me being a spiritual guide, transformation specialist, was such an organic evolution.
Yeah,
because
I watched it happen.
Right, yeah, like you saw,
dude,
I didn't sit out with that shit. It was
I was telling Jeremy, for those of you like listening that don't know Kevin, so me and Kevin were homies. So like I would go over to his house, we just hang out, and we just, you know, shooting ideas off each other, and people just literally, swear to God, just show up to his house, just ask him life questions, and then dip.
legit.
So then it got to the point where he just organized it for Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
It got to the point where like 30, 40 people would be just showing up.
Yep.
Just to ask you
And
questions.
then, yeah, straight up. And then, so then he created like the core, right? Like a group of us to kind of help with that.
Yeah, to develop the practice with. Yeah, and it
And
was
then
like,
it was just from then just
and it bloomed. It was so cool because like
I watched it happen organically. Like it was pretty cool to kind of be on the inside. Well, not
legit.
kind of. I was.
You were on the inside. Yeah, like, legit. You were very much a part
And
of
then,
that. So,
and then one day
yeah.
I just felt called. I was like, yo, I have to go dominate the physical world. I'm gonna go do sales. And I literally said, I was like, yo, I have a feeling I'm gonna make a ton of money. If you guys end up needing it, I'll help you get like a big like farm with like acres.
exactly.
Right. And then I was called him Bob the other day, and he was talking about Bobby Spot, his
Yeah.
boy that he's staying with, the stunt guy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, yo, maybe Atlanta might be an area.
ATL's a shit.
Right, legit. So there's all this dope opportunity with this. So the light being started in that premise where, because I was never shy about sharing this stuff, and that's why I became such a prominent person to go to, because also the information would land for people was the other thing. Like it was just a constant flowing with, and because I didn't have a bias, it was like I would hear what you were sharing, here's what I offer to it. And I also had to grow into that embodiment more, because I had to deal with my own misalignments to be more embodied in the first place, and there was plenty of them. Because when I first started tapping this insight early on, younger, it was super revolutionary mindset. It was
You're
like,
growing the whole time too.
yeah, so I was like, crush the system with the truth. And I was like, that's something still misaligned about that, right? So I had to evolve out of that. So with the light beings, what prompted the final stage of really launching it was, two things. One is people kept coming to me saying, I love talking to you about this stuff because I have no one else I can talk to. My friends think I'm crazy. My family thinks I'm crazy. I have no idea what I'm tapping into. Things don't resonate the same. I just wanted people to show them that they weren't crazy and they weren't alone.
Right.
Like you're tapping into something, and it's also something I have insight on, so I could offer that. And so it organically grew into this guidance role. And then I kept feeling this call of like start a group, bring people together more, like really bring people together with this premise. And then it landed finally in a dream where I was sleeping, and this dream came through in this figure and being came in my dream. I was like, okay, it's time for you to start the group. Go start it. And then my dream, I was like, okay, so let me think how I got to piece it together so I can. And then the being in the dream was like, hey, shut the fuck up and just go start it. Like it'll show itself if you just start it. Literally after that statement was made, I woke up out of my sleep. It was like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. I just emailed everyone I knew on my email list. And I was like, hey, starting a group, last Wednesdays, every month, right? The first one we did, January 25th, 2012 was the first gathering of this, right? And it was like, come. and we're just going to talk. And I started. It became the space for people to ask, guide, all that stuff.
So we're running out of time.
Okay.
Mike just gave me
the thing like
the side.
Wrap it up, long-winded ass. Okay, so
in a very polite way.
Yeah. Right, so I don't have a reputation for being long-winded at all. So to wrap this up,
that's funny.
The light beings, what was built on is the premise that there is a safe place for you to come with all that you are. Everything, whatever you got, come here and be seen in it, and we'll honor you, love you, and show you where you can go and what you can do with it. And so what we want it to be is that in the world, a space that of what's possible, that we truly can come together. People, all walks of life, be received, be supported, remember who you are, and then guide the world there.
Wow.
And my definition of a light being, I guess is the perfect thing to close up with, is a light being is someone who can witness every aspect of themselves and embrace it all in the love that they are, becoming a guiding space of awareness and inspiration for remembering truth. That's a light being. That's what we're training, guiding people to be in this world, and that's what I'm here for, to see where we can.
That's beautiful.
And light conquers darkness just by being.
That's it.
It does.
You turn the light on, darkness just fades. There's no battle.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Mm-hmm. So thank you guys for having me on here, man.
All right. So, and then anybody that wants to get a hold of Kevin, the best ways to do it is going to be through Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Source Radiant,
Mm-hmm.
just the way it sounds, SOURCE, RADIANCE, or at the Light Beings.
Yeah.
Either
Okay.
one. Kevin mans them both. Super interesting stuff on there all the time, and just kind of insightful stuff all the time. And anybody, I strongly suggest getting a hold of him, reaching out to him. And he's got workshops and stuff like that all the time, like the Divine Masculine and
teaching
all those
classes
other
on
ones.
all of it. Yeah, the course of the Creatorhood and information on masculine and feminine relationships, parenting, just living in greater optimization.
Parenting
sacred
alone,
life,
I think, might be one of the biggest things you might be able to help people with.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's a future generation.
That's the
100%.
future, yeah.
And it's something we do even if you're not an actual parent in physical. You're still parenting yourself if you're living.
I watched
it's a
you raise
huge part
Zen,
of it.
so it's cool. Like I'm, whenever
Yeah,
I'm
legit.
ready.
So yeah, it's something that we're building on, and we're creating programs specifically for that too. So yeah, so rock with us, Source Radiance, Instagram, The Light Beings, Source Radiance on YouTube. We got the website coming up; it's being updated now. But you can get with us through all the social medias in that regard.
And of course, you can catch him on Sistas on
Hey,
BET.
Wednesday nights at
Ooh.
9 p.m. Eastern time on BET.
How about the peep it?
All right,
Yeah.
guys. I want to thank everybody for tuning back in to Free Game and just kicking it with us. And hopefully, you guys learned a little something. I know we do every time.
Every time.
I know Jeremy is. I am.
I just.
Kevin, thanks so much for joining us, man.
It's
When
an honor,
you're
my
here.
brother. Yeah.
And
Great to be here.
we'll go grab dinner after as a thank you.
Done. Love it. Let's get it.